Yeah, so I have a question for you this morning. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? You know, have you ever been asked that question? You know, sometimes we get asked that question when we've stepped outside someone else's idea of who we should be. But today I want to ask it a little bit differently. Today I want to talk about a universal experience that we're all having right now and that we've been having our whole lives. And that experience is building of the relationship that we have with ourselves, how we think about ourselves, and the impact that those self-thoughts have on our ability to be compassionate and our ability to have an effect in the world. So I want you to think back to when you were a child. Okay, so I know we were all children, so this shouldn't be too hard. But remember being a little kid? You know, part of the experience of being a little kid is the desire to be a big kid. Right? So perhaps you had an older sibling or a cousin or someone who could do things and had privileges that you couldn't do and didn't have. You know, maybe they could go to places that you couldn't go, or maybe stay up later at night than you were allowed to stay up, or maybe they were doing things you desperately wanted to participate in, but you just weren't big enough. Doggone it, you weren't big enough. Kids spend a lot of time wishing they were teenagers. Okay, so now think back to being a teenager. Okay, no longer a little kid. You do the very things you've been wanting to do for years. Okay, you could get your driver's license, you could have more freedom, you could choose your own extracurricular activities with a little bit more space, and perhaps you could finally wear makeup or hang out with the guys after practice. But just about the time you're flexing your teenage freedom muscles and running all those hormones, suddenly you became aware that what you really wanted to be was an adult. Wait a minute. The adults had all the good stuff. You know, they could buy cigarettes and they could hang out all night and be cool in college or whatever adults did. That's what I wanted to do. Okay? So can you relate to that? You know, we're perpetually thinking that we are not having the experiences that other people are having. And this continues right now to this day. We always want the experiences that other people in some other category that we're not in are having. So maybe you can relate to the whole notion of social media jealousy. You know, on Facebook or Twitter, you know, you see the people posting beautiful photographs of the adventures they're having, and we somehow think that our life is less than theirs in some way, and we just see someone kind of further along the path that we're on. We're on the path, but they're further along. And we're envious of their latest promotion or their recent job change, you know. And if you're married, you think all the single people have the life. And if you're single, you think the married people have it all. And we all agree dating just sucks. So, but you know what I mean, right? We're always wanting what the other person has. So as a minister, I recently went to Colorado a couple of weeks ago to attend one of my dear friends' ordination ceremony and celebration. Ordination, right? I know my time is coming for that, but man, I was envious. As an ordained minister, you see, there are all these reports and paperwork and stuff that you don't have to do anymore. And there's this level of recognition that happens within the ministry at ordination. And when you're reaching that threshold is a big step, right? So when you're in ministerial school, all you want to do is be graduated and licensed. And then when you're graduated and licensed, all you want is a community to love, right? And then you want ordination. Everyone is always ahead of you on the path, right? So I'm having my own experience of that, wishing I had something someone else had. So even in this spiritual community, we can feel this. Others around us seem to have more of the God stuff that we want. You know, someone else seems to have more peace or more joy or more serenity or more poise or whatever. Some folks seem to be better at forgiveness than I am, or doggone it, they keep a better gratitude journal than I do. They're doing something better, right? And we're constantly comparing our lives to everyone else's. You know, in our mysticism class this week, that topic came up about comparison. And what I said then, I will say now, I said, stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. You're having your own life experience, and it's very different than the person sitting next to you. And it may look similar, but they're on a different path. And comparison is not even possible. And the big lesson in this is that as long as we are seeing ourselves as separate from other people, or less than other people, or better than other people for that matter, we're actually blocking ourselves from absorbing the good that is all around us. So let me see if I can make that lesson make sense to you. So I came across this quote: "The great thing about getting older is that you don't lose all the other ages you have been." So let's go back to the childhood thing for a second, right? So remember the joy of that phase of your life. And looking back, let's see if you can see how you were enough as a child. Okay, so the joys were all around you. There were lightning bugs and frogs to catch, and there were popsicles on the ice cream truck, and sandcastles on the beach, and just having fun with your best friend or your siblings or your cousins or whatever. And you had complete freedom from big responsibility. So whatever your childhood experiences were, you were enough. And when you weren't wasting your time wishing you were a bigger kid, you could actually absorb the joy around you. And let me just say this, my own childhood had some darkness to it. So if you're feeling that, I just want you to know I can relate to that. You know, I grew up in an unpredictable and quite scary home at times. But even in the midst of that, even while I was secretly wishing that I was living my best friend's life, she lived right down the road, and I was wishing I could live her life, even then, when I could suspend that wishing and actually live in the moment in my own life, my brothers and my friends and I had a blast. You know, I grew up in Colorado, and so I would lose myself just roller skating on the sidewalks and wasting endless hours in library books in the library, or making s'mores at Girl Scout camp. We played tag in the snow trails in the winter, and then we would play hide and seek on the gorgeous Colorado summer evenings. You know, I was enough for all of that. I was enough for all of that. And I bet you can relate to that, even if your childhood stuff, all the fun stuff, was different than mine. When you stopped wishing you were someplace else or someone else, you could actually have some fun and some joy all around you. So now go back to your teenage years for just a second. Just a second. We don't have to pause there long. So remember the joy of being a teenager. Looking back, see if you can see how you were enough as a teenager. There were joys in that phase of life too, just waiting for you to kind of lean in and have them. You know, remember the first kiss, or remember the crush, or learning to drive, or sneaking off to have some independence and fun, and you were enough then too. You were enough then too. And if you look back at your adult years, your young adult years, you can see how you were enough. Whenever you give yourself the freedom to live your own life and not compare yourself to everyone around you, you had the relationships you were supposed to have. You're having the job that you're supposed to have. And the life lessons that you're supposed to experience unfold for you. And I think that's the tricky part. The life lessons part is the tricky part. Throughout our entire lives, we're going through our life lesson plans. And those life lesson experiences often start with a childhood wounding, almost always. And those woundings create patterns in our lives that we keep having until we learn the lesson. We can't release that pattern until we learn the lesson. And by the way, the secret is the lesson is always about figuring out how to love yourself and how to love the other people involved, no matter what the circumstance or situation is around that life lesson. That's always the lesson. You can resist that lesson, but you just get to have the pattern again, right? So, but here's the deal. If we think we are our life lessons, we think we're broken. And then here comes the thought, I'm not enough. I'm less than everyone else. I'm not worthy because this happened in my life or that happened in my life. I'm somehow unqualified to do the work that I feel deep in myself is mine to do. the work that I know that I came to this human plane to do, somehow I got broken along the way and I can't do it. All of us have a calling deep inside of us to make a difference in this world. Your calling is different than mine, and her calling is different than his. But within the seed is everything necessary to create the full expression of the plant. So within you and your calling is everything necessary to bring it into full expression. Nothing has happened in your life lessons, nothing has happened to lessen your ability to live your calling, to make the difference you're supposed to make. Becky and I watched a movie this week. It's about a little girl who lives in Mongolia, and it's actually it was a real movie. Like a real life story. She was born into this family that was renowned for being eagle hunters, meaning they trained eagles to not only hunt for food and fur, but to actually compete in these eagle competitions that require precision and skill. And she watched her father train these eagles. She watched her grandfather train these eagles. And they had this saying in her house, or in this culture, that says, what the baby sees in the nest, they live. And so little Ashalapan had a nest filled with eagle hunting. That's what she saw. And she wanted to live that life too. But there was one major problem. She was a girl. She was a girl. And everyone around her, with the exception of her immediate family, refused to see the possibility that a girl could be an eagle hunter. The messages around her were bleak. It was kind of like a documentary, and they interviewed these elder eagle hunters, and the things that they were saying, the messages that that little girl was getting were bleak and condescending and misogynistic, and it was hard to watch, actually. But she had a deeper inner calling to become an eagle huntress. So at age 13, she started training her first eagle. And in 2014, she became the first girl to compete in the Eagle annual competition. And much to the chagrin of the elders of the community, she won. She won. And she was true to her calling, even though the odds were stacked against her mightily. She stayed true to it. So if you're an eagle hunter, hunt with eagles. If you're a baker, bake. If you're a dancer, dance. If you're a writer, write. If you're a teacher, teach. If you're a parent, parent. Regardless of the other big life lessons that you are necessarily working on, live your calling. Please stop hiding behind the game of competition and comparison and holding up your life lessons as the excuse you have that you can't do whatever it is you came here to do. It's never too late to step out of hiding and wake up to releasing your gifts to the world. How many of you know who Brene Brown is? Yeah, everybody, good. You've probably read this, but I must share it because it supports my lesson. She says this: I think midlife is when the universe gently places her hands upon your shoulders, pulls you close, and whispers in your ear, I'm not screwing around. It's time. All this pretending and performing, these coping mechanisms that you've developed to protect yourself from feeling inadequate and getting hurt has to go. Your armor is preventing you from growing into your gifts. I understand that you needed these protections when you were small. I understand that you believed your armor could help you secure all of the things you needed to feel worthy of love and belonging, but you're still searching and you're more lost than ever. Time is growing short. There are unexplored adventures ahead of you. You can't live the rest of your life worried about what other people think. You were born worthy of love and belonging. Courage and daring are coursing through you. You were made to live and love with your whole heart. It's time to show up and be seen. Brene Brown. And whatever age you break free and start your gifts, whatever age you are right now is perfect. And here's what I found out. At age 23, Tina Fey still worked at the YMCA. At age 23, Oprah Winfrey got fired from her first recording job. At age 24, Stephen King was working as a janitor and living in a trailer. At age 28, J.K. Rowling was a suicidal single parent living on welfare. At age 30, Harrison Ford was a carpenter. At age 30, Martha Stewart was a stockbroker. Julia Child released her first cookbook at age 39 and got her own cooking show not until she was 51. I think I still have to keep going. Vera Wang failed to make the Olympic figure skating team, didn't get the editor-in-chief position at Vogue, and designed her first dress at age 40. Samuel L. Jackson didn't get his first movie role until he was 46, and Morgan Freeman landed his first major movie role at age 52. Grandma Moses didn't begin her painting career until age 76. Now I'm catching some of y'all. Louise Bourgeois didn't become a famous artist until she was 78. You don't know where you'll end up tomorrow. Never tell yourself you're too old to make it. Never tell yourself you've missed your chance. Never tell yourself you aren't good enough, you can do it, whatever it is. The world needs you to find your compassion for yourself and others. The world needs you to forgive yourself for wasting time and step into your power. If we know we're connected to the all, we can be powerful right now. Your highest self, your soul, is forever and eternally connected to Source. There's nothing your human self can do to disconnect you or to separate you from your magnificence and from your divine true nature. And that core within you is all the qualification you need to do the work you came here to do, to contribute to this entire human experience in the very way that speaks to your heart. You may have heard this saying that God doesn't call the qualified, God qualifies the called. You might be thinking, oh, that calling thing, that's just for ministers and spiritual teachers and whatever. No, the God within you is tapping on your heart, calling you to do your thing. Don't be trying to take my job. You're called and have always been called to be you and to touch the part of the human experience that gives you and your heart that little jazzy feeling when you know you're in your right spot. And if you ever doubt that you're good enough, I hope this quote by a man named Colton Jansen will relieve your doubts. If you're familiar with Bible characters, it helps, but you should understand this. He says, Jacob was a cheater, Peter had a temper, David had an affair, Noah got drunk, Jonah ran from God, Paul was a murderer, Gideon was insecure, Miriam was a gossip, Martha was a worrier, Thomas was a doubter, Sarah was impatient, Elijah was moody, Moses stuttered, Abraham was old, and Lazarus was dead. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. So how does God qualify us to do a thing? There's a truth that I teach that says resources follow commitment. Once we make a true commitment to answer our calling and live it, all of the resources of the universe flood in behind that commitment. The right teacher shows up. The perfect support floods in. The door of opportunity just kind of suddenly appears and right on your path. And if you welcome the teacher and the support and you fling open that door, if you align your choices and keep walking towards your commitment, you'll make it. You'll make it. So let's go back to the story of Ashalapan, the young eagle huntress. Once she decided to defy convention and push aside the ideas that she was inferior or unqualified because of her gender, she made the commitment to pursue eagle hunting. And the universe stepped in to support that intention. She was able to identify a young eaglet in a nest way up on a mountain, and she was able to actually climb and scale that mountain, and actually she had to kind of scale down to the nest to get the little eaglet. She just brought that majestic bird in to be her teammate in this process. And her father agreed to teach her everything, even though there was tremendous community pressure to not do that and to wait till his son got older. Her grandfather, who was like an elder in the community, gave her his blessing to go forward and do it. Her mother made her costume for the competition. And the eagle that little eagle fully mastered everything it needed to learn. Everything aligned for her success once she stepped into her calling with a full commitment. She just had to trust her true nature. She knew it was hers to do. And here's what I know. The nature of God is incarnated in every soul, not just a little girl in Mongolia. All of us are whole and perfect and complete, just as we are. If we're perceiving unworthiness, we're experiencing separation from God, there is no separation. There is no gap between our highest self and the life we are intentionally living. See, every challenge in life, every yearning we have to do our work, ask you the question I asked you at the beginning. Who do you think you are? And your answer to every challenge and every call you feel is, I am divine and I am fully qualified right here and right now to take a step toward my highest and best self. I am perfect. It's one thing to say that and another thing to live it. And to live that answer every day in every choice we have to make. It takes practice and study and practice. And Ernest Holmes says this about this philosophy. The whole purpose of the science of mind is to reconcile the apparent separation of the spiritual world, which must be perfect, and the material world, which appears imperfect. The concept of perfect and imperfect separates us not only from each other, but from God itself. The ideas of worthy and unworthy that come from a practice of comparison, they separate us from our calling, from the work that we are here to do in the world. When we are experiencing those concepts in our hearts and minds, we simply have a lack of knowledge of the presence of God. Who do you think you are? However you answered that question vastly determines the quality of your life. And the answer determines whether or not you will fulfill what you came here to do. Your answer also determines whether or not you can rise to a level of compassion for yourself and others that actually makes a difference. As your spiritual leader, my job, my calling, my work is to know your perfection and connection even when you cannot know it for yourself. I love you. You are enough. Always. Please pray with me. I recognize a sweet, sweet, sweet spirit in this place. It shows up in the hearts of each and every person in this room. It is always perfect, always powerful, and always capable of expressing every aspect of life. And as I recognize that powerful spirit in each person in the room, I know that each one of us have the desire to make a positive impact in the world in some unique way. Each heart wants to sing its own tune. Each person carries a seed with them that desires an opportunity to express. Right here and right now, I know that every doubt is erased. Every feeling of unworthiness evaporates into the nothingness. Barriers are miraculously removed, and opportunities and new ideas and perfect support are apparent in divine right timing. Nothing opposes the expression of love and creativity and abundance and joy. Nothing. The universe conspires to make us realize that full blooming potential that is blossoming in each and every person. I am so thankful for this congregation. I am so thankful for this spiritual family that I love so much. And I'm thankful for the blessings that they immediately receive as they step forward into expressing their truest self. They know who they are right here and right now. And so it is.